Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Mohammed Kantawi and I am a university teacher at Ouargla University. And I changed from Ouargla University and went to École Normale Supérieure. In today's session, it's about my series, Linguistics and Creative Indagations in Linguistics. I shall be talking about different things in this series. But today's session is about Introduction to Linguistics. The thing that we are going to speak about in Introduction to Linguistics are 5 points. Those 5 points are, the first one is the definition of linguistics. How do we define linguistics? Are we supposed to take the definition of the Western society, as it was defined by people in America and Britain and Australia and other places? Or are we supposed to create a new definition that goes in tandem with linguistics? We shall see this by the end of the session. So that's the first point, introduction or the definition of linguistics. The second point I shall be talking about is about the types of linguistics, the macrolinguistics and the microlinguistics. Now, when we speak about the macrolinguistics, we're talking about the relationship between language to other fields outside language. Like, for example, the relationship between language and society, language and psychology, language and computers, language and mind, language and anthropology, language and God. Those about macrolinguistics. About microlinguistics, the second type is microlinguistics, and which means the word micro means small. So we shall be talking about language in language, to speak about things in language per se. And within the microlinguistics, we have got 5 fields, very important ones. The first field is phonetics and phonology together. Now, in some books, let's say some linguisticians would prefer to call it phonology, and they would assume that phonology contains phonetics as a field. But in this series, I shall be talking about both phonetics and phonology, and we shall see the difference between them. So this is the first field within microlinguistics. The second field is about morphology, and morphology is about the form of the words, or word formation, how words can be formed in English, in a particular language, or in English in this case. The third point, or the third field, is syntax. It's about the structure or the construction of sentences, or let's say the construction of syntactic strings, not only sentences but also phrases and clauses. So we have phrases and clauses and sentences. The fourth point, or the fourth field in microlinguistics, is pragmatics, is about pragmatics. And in this field, though some people would say that pragmatics is not within the field of microlinguistics, some people consider it outside microlinguistics, so it is within the area of microlinguistics. But I believe pragmatics is within the field of microlinguistics, and I shall explain why. The fifth field is semantics. And semantics is the scientific study of meaning, literal meaning, the meaning that we find in the dictionary. So these are the 5 points, or the 5 fields of microlinguistics. The third point that I shall be talking about in this episode is the difference between grammaticality and acceptability. Now, what is grammaticality and what is acceptability? Now, certainly, people who believe in grammaticality, they would tell you it has got to do with the rules of grammar, and we should show respect to them. Grammaticality. and it has got to do with grammar within language. While acceptability, it's more than that, it's about communication. When I say, for example, a sentence that seems ungrammatical, but it can be acceptable. How it is acceptable? It is acceptable in communication. I mean, the meaning is there, or the message is there. When a speaker can encode a certain message in communication, that would be acceptable. That sentence would be acceptable. So that's acceptability. So that means there are some points within acceptability which cannot be accepted in grammaticality. Grammaticality, it has got to do with the respect of the grammar of a particular language, of a given language, and in this case English. So we can notice even the other difference between grammaticality and acceptability. It would be in academia. Now, in academia, students at university, like here in Wergla, when they speak in grammaticality because they are learning what we call the formal language, the formal English, the language that we use in academia, in articles, in research, in investigations. While if they go outside academia, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, particularly those who listen to American music like rap music and pop music, those who watch particularly American movies, they tend to violate the grammar. And when they violate the grammar, they show interest only in meaning or in the message itself, not in the language itself, and that's acceptability. So we would argue that since we can have a certain point explained to other people in communication without really caring about the grammar, no problem. If the message is there and can be understood and communication can go easily, no problem to violate some certain rules of grammar. So that's the difference between grammaticality and acceptability. The fourth point is about the difference between prescriptivism and descriptivism. Our students at university will study about the difference between prescriptivism and descriptivism. Now, what is that difference between prescriptivism and descriptivism? As you can notice, the word descriptivism is taken from the verb describe, while prescriptivism is taken from the word prescribe. And even in the verbs, there is a difference. To describe, it means to describe without a certain criteria. You look at the phenomenon and you try to explain it or to describe it as it is. You don't need to change. You don't need to go to change something about that phenomenon. While in prescriptivism, you would like to say, I have to change this, I prescribe, I decree, I ordain, I command. That's about prescriptivism. But within linguistics, descriptivism is about describing language as it is used by people outside. I go outside to the street and look at people, how they communicate, how they use language, and I try to describe it as a linguistician. While prescriptivism, it has got to do with how people should use language, or how language should be used by people. So as you can notice, the difference even between prescriptivism and descriptivism. Descriptivism is about the message, about fluency, about communication, while prescriptivism is about accuracy, is about correctness, is about policing language. To police language, it means to go around and to tell people how they should speak, how they should use grammar particularly, or language in general. So that's the fourth point in this episode. The last point is about my own opinions about all the 4 points I spoke about. And these are my opinions. First, I shall give my opinion about the definition of linguistics. The definition of linguistics, as you know, is the scientific study of language or human language, because we believe that animals do not have a language as such as we do. They certainly have communication, they can communicate, but do they communicate in a language? I doubt that. I think that they communicate in a way that we don't understand. Well, my own criticism about this definition is the word scientific. Why there should be the word scientific? Why language should be studied scientifically? Since language has got some other facets that are not clear or apparent to scientists and to linguisticians. There are things that are outside our capability to understand. And as you can notice at university, we don't study the relationship between language and God, which I call theolinguistics. Theo, God, linguistics, language. Well, there are some points in language that can be studied not with science, not scientifically. A speaker or a linguistician is supposed to use his own intuition or the intuitive ability to study some bits in language. So it's not overall scientific. That's my own criticism to the definition of linguistics. The second point that I shall be criticizing is why linguisticians prefer descriptivism to prescriptivism and acceptability to grammaticality. My own personal opinion is that I prefer prescriptivism to descriptivism. I show a lot of respect to language, that I can't just simply go and violate the rules of grammar. I try to emphasize the importance and the paramountcy of language above all, above the message. What will it do to you to speak correctly and to have your message across? What would the problem be if you do that? You will respect language and you will have your message across. So my personal opinion is that I prefer prescriptivism to descriptivism. Those are the points that I spoke about concerning this episode, the 5 points. We spoke about the definition of linguistics according to the Western society, not according to us. We spoke about the difference between macrolinguistics and microlinguistics. The microlinguistics, the 5 points, phonetics and phonology together, morphology, syntax, pragmatics and semantics, or semantics and pragmatics. Though some people say pragmatics is not within the area of microlinguistics, but I prefer to say it is within the area. It has got to do with language irreality. The third point, we spoke about the difference between grammaticality and acceptability, and then we moved to talking about prescriptivism and descriptivism and the difference between them and what I prefer. Surely prescriptivism. The last point was about my own my own opinions about that. Thank you very much. I hope you could understand some stuff about that. And if you have any questions, you can write the questions down in the comments. I welcome any criticism, any comment that you would like to say, or if you have questions, you can ask. Thank you so much. See you next time.